Hi, and welcome back to NDI Central live at NAB 2018. My name's Rex Olson with NewTek, and we're here in the South Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center, webcasting live from the NewTek booth. And if you're coming to NAB, make sure you stop by the NewTek booth and say hello and visit us and check out all the latest offerings from NewTek, as well as the NDI Central Pavilion. Well, our next guest is someone that's been in live production for quite some time, working on projects from MTV, eSports, and many, many more, and that's Victor Borachuck of Jupiter Return. Welcome, Victor.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been doing this?
You know, longer than, I think it's, I want to say it's a little over 10 years now.
10 years.
Yeah, it's probably, I think 11 technically.
And you've been kind of all over the world with this.
Yeah,
thing,
you know, I mean, we started out working with Tom Green when he was doing his live webcast out of his house.
Yep.
So that was kind of when the very first TriCaster came out. I think it was the TriCaster Studio, and then you know, TriCaster broadcast we had. So we actually, before that, we had a VT5. So it was like way back in the day. But over the years, I mean, we've done, you know, it's been a lot of firsts. You know, there's been a lot of opportunities to kind of do things before a lot of other companies have done them. Like, I know we did a couple of the first TriCaster broadcast integrations. A lot of fun things for MTV, where it would be something where, you know, we'd start out live TV, world premiere music video type thing, but it was all coming out of TriCaster, which was kind of cool. It's like, you know, you got your, it's like the world premiere Foo Fighters video coming out of this box sitting on the table in front of you to the whole world. So pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, it's over the years like a lot of innovation, a lot of different changes and things like that. And now with NDI, I mean, like, it's kind of like, it brings back a little bit of the feeling of when we first started working with NewTek and TriCaster.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember hearing stories of you loading your TriCaster into a boat to get to some remote island.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, in the early days of like the webcast world, it was like not many people knew how to do these things, and if you knew how to operate these machines and at the same time go to some remote place where if something broke, you had to know how to direct the show and produce the show and fix something if it went wrong, then you get to go to cool places like that. But that particular one was it was Necker Island, so Richard Branson's island, and we went there. It was a fundraiser for Halloween with like Victoria's Secret models. So yeah, I mean, it was like
tough job, but someone has to do it.
You know, I mean, you do. I mean, it's like you gotta. Sometimes they're better than others, but you know, it always balances out.
So you've been a long-time TriCaster user,
right?
How is that? Why TriCaster and why not something else?
You know, I mean, it's like anything else. You kind of, when you find a product, I mean, we don't really try to endorse or like be friends with a million different manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, it's
kind of like
whatever tool for the job.
Right. I mean, well, but it's also like, you know, if you find a company that really works, then it's kind of, it makes sense to stick by them. And I mean, over the years, there's been a lot of different competing products, and you know, to be honest, there's been times when somebody that we've worked with TriCaster for a long time, they've like called a meeting for like, let's see if there's something else that we can use to try to replace this, and it's never really been something that was replaceable on one level or another. I mean, are there other things that do some things? Sure, but not all. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's always made sense, and it's always kind of given us that security and flexibility to let us worry about the show, you know, versus worrying about like technically, do we have everything that we need to plug this into here? Yeah. Knowing that if we get there and somebody comes up with 4 audibles 5 minutes before the show, we can say, yeah, I think we can make that work, versus, oh no, it's not possible with our workflow.
How has NDI changed the way you do things?
You know, it's kind of, it fits into the whole ecosystem of what TriCaster is kind of all about. You know, and like I was just saying, I mean, the whole strong point of the machine is that the flexibility, ability to kind of adapt to situations on the fly. You know, a live event always starts out with one plan. You kind of progress throughout the event. I mean, and it's natural. You build the story, and the narrative kind of evolves as things move on. And NDI is kind of another tool in that box. So before, it's, you know, for example, with an eSports event, you know, POVs are something that's become pretty standard in every production. So you have like a 5v5. Normally that's, you know, you have 10 SDI cables running back to the control room, means you need 10 inputs on your switcher, means that you need, you know, run that through a router that takes up 10 holes on that router. With NDI, you can wire that all on the stage, one switch, one cable goes back to the control room. You can use SDI inputs for your traditional camera setup or NDI, and you could also then take in all those POV cameras via IP, because it's something you're just going to use during gameplay. So that way, it's kind of you can separate and segment the show in that fashion. I mean, to us, it's been one of those things where it's great for applications that warrant it. Like that's an application where it wouldn't be practical to do it another way. Could you do it another way? Sure, of course, but like it doesn't make any sense.
Is flexibility important for the kind of work that you're doing?
Of course. I mean, and I can't tell you how many times we've met with a client or a new client or somebody that's referred us to a client, and one of the things they bring up is we've worked with this one place for a while and they're great and they're really nice, but anytime we're in a show and we want to add something, their guy's like, oh no, we can't do it, or that somebody gets upset, or somebody throws something, or it's like people are screaming and yelling. I mean, people come up and the client doesn't understand usually doesn't understand all the intricacies of the show and the technical thing, and it's not really their job to do that. They just want to come up to you and say, we got this new app on our phone. Like, is there a way that we can show this on the screen? And instead of saying, oh, we gotta have a cable and do this and do that. I mean, oh yeah, we can install this app. We can scan convert it. Yeah, sure, we can do it, no problem. I mean, that's kind of, and they're like, oh, that's cool. So that's they'll come back and they'll hire you again versus, yeah, this guy, they always had a problem with everything. They're always just hard to work with. I mean, it's like if you can't make it happen, you become hard to work with.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it seems to be the nature of being that go-to guy for the, I guess, unusual event or the cutting-edge type of event. You've been working in eSports a lot,
yeah.
right?
I mean, cutting-edge events, yes, but at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of events that we do are very traditional events, so there's an application everywhere, and it's a lot of times, it's something that you didn't even know that, I mean, one of the things with NDI is it's, you can look at the technical aspects of, okay, we can replace this workflow with that workflow, but there's so many applications for it that you won't even know that you could have until you use it. It's like a cell phone. Yeah. Did we all get by without a smartphone? Yeah, of course. But when's the last time you used a payphone? You know what I mean? You could make a call another way, but you wouldn't. And a good example of that is we do a lot of the NBA events, so global games events, which are NBA games that are around the world. So it could be in Spain, it could be in Brazil, it could be in London, it could be in Mexico City, it could be in Germany. But so every arena is a little bit different. Every arena has different specs. One thing every arena does have is an IP infrastructure. So, you go to these different arenas, and the idea is to kind of show the experience of an NBA game that you would have in the United States and other countries. And, so it's like you could do that in a traditional workflow. So you could, run fiber for every camera like you normally would, and they do. But at the same time, if you want to, the day before, hey, let's put a camera on the DJ. Oh, we got this one activation. It'd be cool if we did that. Normally it's like, oh, we got to run we're out of fiber paths, or oh, we don't have this, or we don't have any more inputs on that. So I mean, but with NDI, you have every arena's got Wi-Fi, every arena's got a network. You can plug that in, run it over that network. Now you have a DJ cam.
So
no big
you've
deal.
been successfully being able to go into these facilities and use their existing infrastructure?
Quite a bit. I mean, and it's great with. It's great with shows like that because it's like a very traditional workflow. Everybody assumes that everybody has to color within these lines, and having that ability to kind of go outside those lines is something that all of a sudden, not only adds to the entertainment value of the show, but I mean it could bring in new revenue stream potentials because now we can do this activation or we could do that activation, and it's cheap, cost effective. It doesn't cost us $1 million to do it. So there's a lot of benefits to having that sort of flexibility, and it just kind of lets your creativity dictate what the show is versus the technology dictate what the show is.
Interesting.
So,
have you had a chance to check out the whole virtualized concept of production?
As
far as the idea of having remote cameras and having those cameras come back to a central location and producing from there?
A little bit, yeah. We've done a little bit of that. I mean,
are you seeing more and more of that sort of thing?
There's a couple.
Talked about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of projects that we're working on that are kind of in that vein that you might see soon. But I mean, all of that is just kind of it's a whole different world that was never really brought into it. I mean, the most you would see in that in that avenue before would be something like a bonded cellular solution coming back,
Right.
but it's like a single camera type thing.
Yeah.
And now you kind of have this thing where you can have a graphics operator that's in another country, which you know, the girl that does a majority of our graphics and animation is actually overseas. So I mean, she could theoretically do a live show, you know, from her house, which is great, you know. So
it's interesting, you know, I mean, what used to be prohibitive, you know, roll out a satellite truck in order to get a remote feed is now easily possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just it's kind of a evolution of the whole process. I mean, it's like, you know, doing encoding all on site versus cloud encoding. I mean, it's just, you know, moving forward in that process. But I think in general, kind of opening up IP to being able to ship around signals like that is great, you know. And if another thing, like if you're doing, we do, you know, conferences and things like that. So if you have multiple rooms going on, that's a really great application for it too. You know, we've done a couple events in hotel type environments, and you know, I mean, a conference type of event or like something like that, it can be pretty like color by numbers, pretty straightforward, not super exciting. But I mean, you know, a lot of these conferences, like you might have, you know, your main panel discussion in one room, and then you have, after that, you know, 10 breakout rooms, 15 breakout rooms, and they have, you know, they're all different interesting things that are going on. But, you know, to have a crew to cover that whole thing is, you know, very few clients can afford to kind of go from this level of production to all of a sudden covering this.
Sure.
But I mean, with that type of workflow, you could have the house, IT put everything on a VLAN, and then all of a sudden you can have a camera in every room with embedded audio. You can cover the entire convention. And even if you're not covering, you can capture everything for post. It just opens up a whole new workflow.
Of course.
So
yeah, and you know, like these PTZ cameras that we're using, the NDI PTZ1s.
Right.
You know, this type of technology is making it easier to do more of those types of projects, and making it more affordable. Plop a few of these cameras in the room, remote control them from a single location.
Yeah, I mean, and extending like the KVM and tally and all that over NDI is, I mean, that's another thing. You know, it used to be where you run 20 cables for each camera, unless you're doing something that's on fiber or on triax or something like that. But I mean, that kind of becomes like the next evolution of triax, you know? So you don't have to have a truck to have the same functionality, and you don't have to carry around like 7 cases of heavy cables. So it's great. And that's another thing, like, you know, if you're working outside the US where, you know, resources are allocated differently, you know, coming by Cat 5, Cat 6 cable, Cat 7 cable is a lot easier than, you know, coming by good BNC, reliable XLR, that type of stuff.
So what do you see as kind of the next level of technology out there that is
well, I mean,
on the horizon? What do you think that
I'm excited that you have the Ultra HD to NDI boxes, because it's one of those things where I feel like...
Are you getting more of a call for that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say like in the last year or two, like 4K Ultra HD production has become more of a standard. But it's the thing with, like, you know, with any technology is you can come out with some like really cool standard or some really cool gadget, but unless there's some sort of critical mass that's gonna like push it over the edge, it's gonna be like 5 people that invest the money to do it, and then it's not, you know, nobody's gonna want to like spend the extra to do it. But I think, you know, something like that makes it provides that critical mass to where you can take the next step. You know, you don't have to adhere to, you know, a certain standard or have just this one piece of equipment that does it. You can have any sort of camera, any sort of, you know, you could have regular TriCaster system, runs over Cat 5, nothing crazy that you need to make it happen, and it's affordable, which is a huge thing.
Well, and one of the things that we've been talking about here is being able to use that 4K camera in a HD project and pan and scan. So basically set that wide shot up and being able to punch in.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, multiple shots from one camera.
Exactly. I mean, if you have an application where you have, you know, an event like this, I mean, you could create several different shots. You know what I mean? You could have something on the table, another shot there. But yeah, I mean, I just think like big picture, that like critical mass moment of pushing the Ultra HD over to a widespread audience is good. You know, and you know, we're seeing advances in codecs that will probably make that a little bit easier on the encoding side. So I think that'll happen in the next year or two. So.
Well, very good. Well, Victor, thanks for joining us. How do people find out more about Jupiter Return? JupiterReturn.com. We're actually doing a whole redesign of the website, so that'll be up, I think, next week.
And then we have a lot of interesting events coming up. We're doing a big Science and Technology Award show that's coming up later on this year.
Where
so
is
that'll
that,
be it'll be in Los Angeles.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be like a large-scale award show. I believe it's late August.
Okay. They're
Yeah,
gonna be
so
streamed
all
live,
kinds
or
of cool gadgets and stunts, and be like the Oscars of science. That's
where
the idea.
would someone see that? Do we know yet?
Well, it's going to be televised, and it'll also be, on a couple digital platforms.
Okay.
So, but you'll find out more about it when there's more official announcements.
Exciting.
So,
All right, Victor, thanks for joining us.
thanks again.
All right. All right, and don't go away. We'll be back after this short break.